Howdy everyone, Pete Daddy here. On my last Weekend League results video, I had a comment from Edward Rogers asking me to share my custom tactics. So I thought that would be a great idea right before we go into Weekend League. I'll let you guys know how I play, what I use, what I think is the best formation in the game, the best custom tactics that'll help you grind out more wins in Weekend League and division rivals. So thank you for that comment. If any of you have any suggestions for videos, leave me a comment down below. And if anyone is new here, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. So let's just get right into it. First and foremost, we'll just go right into custom tactics. What I think is the best formation in the game by far, hands down. I play in this 95% of the time, and that would be this 4-2-3-1. So every game I just switch to what I have slotted in my ultra defensive. I don't really consider it an ultra defensive formation by any means. That's just where I have it slotted. So I just play right over here, and what I have, I'm playing drop back defensive style. Now I know that kind of has a bit of a stigma to it, but if you look here, and I'll explain a little bit of the reasoning behind why I do play drop back, but you'll see I do play it at 5 depth, so I'm not parking the bus by any means. But I feel like drop back allows my players to come back, and it feels like it allows me to play more aggressive. And I know that kind of goes against the stigma of drop back. People think drop back defenders are just ones that just completely park the bus, have people come back. But for me, I actually like to play fairly aggressive defense. And so I've noticed that if I play balanced defense and I try to make a tackle with a center back or a CDM or a fullback, something like that, and I miss, then when I'm on balance, it seems like I don't have anyone else behind me to support that. So, and I'm not saying that's the best way to defend, but that's the way I defend. And so you want to have tactics that are going to work for your play style. So for me, if I'm going for an aggressive tackle and I miss, I want to have someone else I can switch to, someone else I know that's tracking back that I can switch to hopefully then make the manual tackle with that person. So I feel like I've moved this up throughout the year. I think originally I was playing this at 3 depth. I've moved this up to 4, and now I'm at 5. We're playing with just epic players at this point, players with a lot of pace. We've got center backs with a ton of pace, and I feel like if you're not pressing your players, when your opponent has the ball, when they recover it, if you're not kind of getting on them in the midfield area, then you're not really playing good defense. You're not going to be able to control the game. You're just pretty much sitting back and absorbing attacks. I feel like, when I go up against players playing this, yes, it can be annoying when they're playing that 1 depth, but I find that I'm controlling the game, and as long as I just don't get pegged back on the counter, I'm just going to control it, and I'm going to be able to pass through it. I'm going to be able to get through eventually. Now, this may work at some level, but when you get to that highest level of FIFA competition, this 1 depth just is not going to work. You're going to have to learn how to defend playing a bit of a higher line, because if you just allow your opponent to control the midfield, to control the attack, they're going to eventually break you down. And yeah, you're going to have games where maybe, if you play this style, where you're maybe going to kind of peg them back, get that 1 or 2 counterattack goals and things just don't go well for them. But overall, this is going to bring you the best results, being able to play that 5 depth. And, like I said, just for me this year, drop back is just working better, but I do recommend pairing that with a high line. As far as width goes, I'm still keeping this pretty narrow with 3 width. And sometimes I do feel like I give up a little bit on the wing, but I feel like I more than make up for that by being compact in the midfield and, compact in front of my goal, because ultimately, if someone is going to score on you, they've got to get it into the box at some point. So I want as many defenders in the box area as possible to, just to help out with the defending. I may give up a little bit on the wing, but then that's where you've got to be a little cautious with it. Understand the way you're playing the game, Let me just go over here to like my formation. So, for example, if I have an opponent playing a ball up the wing and I've got my Ferland Mendy as my left back, I need to be cautious not to just run him out. Just kind of be aware of your surroundings, and that's a big part of this. And in my FUT Champions highlights video that I was mentioning earlier, I showed a couple of examples of where we went against opponents who push their center back out way too far. One of the big reasons, I should have said this earlier, one of the big reasons 4-2-3-1 is the best formation in the game is that it helps you keep your defensive shape so well. But what I see all the time, what people do, people are moving their defenders into terrible positions. So if I'm moving my Longley up to a CDM position, then I'm allowing all that space behind him. So you've got to be aware of what you're doing with your manual defending. So make sure you're not causing problems in your defense by the way you are manually defending. Manual defending is the best thing you can do, but you've got to be able to recognize where your players are in relation to everyone else. So just be aware of that. And like I said, for what I play, I feel like 3 width is the best, just because it keeps everybody compact in front of the goal, and it makes it hard. The way, I've heard this philosophy from, a lot of players, but you want to make your opponent do something special to score on you. So you don't want to just give up these easy goals. So I feel like I want to make my opponent have to work hard if they're going to get a goal. And when you're really locked in defensively, you're just going to see lots of results from that. Being able to take care of your business, get the ball back, win it, and then you're off to the races on the counter attack. As far as offensive style goes, I feel like balance is by far the best way to start a game. I'll get to in my next formation that I switch to occasionally when you may want to change that up. Width, I think 5 width. I have toyed playing this at 4. I've played this all the way down from 1 up to like 7 or 8, and I just feel like 5 is the best. I was playing on 4 for a while, but I feel like that playing at 5 gives me a little bit more width. And not only, I've talked about this a ton, wing play is so important in FIFA. And, in a 4-2-3-1, you don't technically have wingers, you have wide cams, but they effectively act as wingers, and so you're going to making a lot of runs with your wide cams. And also, when your cams are a little bit wider, sometimes that pulls out your opponent's fullbacks. So if you're too narrow in your attack, like sometimes if I've seen some people play the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, which I just am not able to have much success with this year. Maybe in really good, crisp gameplay, but overall it's not, because it brings your opponent's fullbacks and center backs and CDMs, just everyone just right into the middle. And that's kind of what we try to create here with our width of 3, and that's kind of makes it hard to score against when everything is so compact. But if you have a little more width, you'll notice sometimes, especially, in attack, I should mention that some too, like when you're attacking with the 4-2-3-1, make sure you're passing out to your wide cams. That kind of helps open up the space. You want to spread out your opponent a little bit. So if I'm passing out to a wide cam, then they've got to cover him with a fullback. Then if I pass it back in to my striker or, my central cam, that just opens up a little bit of more room. It pulled out either my opponent's CDM or its fullback, so now I've got a little bit more room to deal with. So I just feel like 5 width is working perfect. Players in boxes, similar. I've experimented with a ton of things this year, everything down from 2, I think, all the way up to 10. I've experimented with a lot of this. 5, I'm thinking, is the best now, and you just have to be a little cautious, just because if you are playing an opponent who is just completely parking the bus, you may actually want to change this and come back and adjust this to like 2 or 3. And the reason for that is if your opponent is completely parking the bus and you have too many players crashing the box, then what ends up happening is you just have too much congestion inside your opponent's box, and then you're not able to really pass around. So sometimes you may need to pull this back a little bit so you can kind of make those passes outside of your opponent's box until you have that opening. But I feel like overall 5 is the best. Corners and free kicks, I just play those at 2. You can get pegged back on those this year in FIFA, so you don't want to have this any higher than that. So just 2 works perfectly for that. Then we'll talk about formations, and I'll mention briefly about players you want to be looking for. You'll see here Ribery and Dembele are our striker and our central cam. So for your striker and central cam, one of the best things you want to look for are 5-star weak foot players. So you're talking about Neymar's. You're talking about a lot of those FUT birthday players were 5-star weak foot, like Griezmann. There's that Bruno Fernandez. There's Lucas Moura. It seems like there's been a bigger emphasis this year on 5-star weak foot. It's something I've looked for a long time in FIFA. I personally, if I had to choose between 5-star weak foot or 5-star skills, I'd take 5-star weak foot every day of the week. It allows you to be much more deadly in the box. You can go left, you can go right. You can fake right and go left. You can fake right and your opponent thinks you're going to come back left and keep going right. Just gives you so many more options. And so Ribery and Dembele are my central players. And so that's what you want to look for in the middle. You don't necessarily need a ton of pace in the middle. But I think 5-star weak foot just helps you to be so much more unpredictable. And that's one thing about FIFA 20 this year. There's really not just a perfect way to score. Pretty much in every other FIFA, there's just like, if you got to that one spot, that was going to be a goal. FIFA 20, it's kind of like, there's good ways to score, near post shots and things like that. But you kind of have to get into certain positions, like perfect positions, to be able to score those. So there's a wide array of things to do in the box. And 5-star weak foot just helps you be so much more unpredictable, allows you to control the attack instead of allowing your opponent to shade you one way, play it to your weak foot. Just 5-star weak foot is the way to go in the middle. Now, if you have an epic 4-star or 3-star weak foot player, like in my instance, I have Dries Mertens. He's a 4-star weak foot player, and I think he's an absolute monster in FIFA. Great dribbling the ball, great at doing everything. But since he's 4-star weak foot, I prefer to have him out wide. Now, I have played him centrally, and he has been amazing there, but he's always going to leave you lacking just a little bit because of that 4-star weak foot. So if you have your 4-star and 3-star weak foot players, make sure to put them in your wide roles. And also for your wide roles, one of the most important things you want is pace. So you just want those rapid players making those runs up and down the wing all game, every game. So Mertens and Atal are my options over there. And then you also want to think a lot about complementary players. Like, we may go back to this in a minute, but I have experimented a ton with that Atal position. I've recently been experimenting with that new 95 Vinicius Jr. playing there. I've played Jadon Sancho there, played a couple different players there. And I feel like Atal is the one that still gives me the most. And I think what it is Atal has high work rates. And so he tracks back a lot. He has great defending stats. So Mertens is actually a high-low work rate. So his defensive work rate is low. So he's not always tracking back for me. But Atal is always tracking back for me. So it kind of gives you some complementary players. So you want to think about that a little bit as well. And also when you're playing the game, you want to kind of think, gosh, I didn't really have my player in this position. I didn't really have my player over here. Kind of think of where you feel like your team is lacking. And sometimes just trying a different player or switching positions around can change everything, So just getting those players that work well together is amazing. Same thing for my CDMs. I ask a ton out of my CDMs, and you'll see in my instructions in just a second a little bit about that. But I have come to where I am loving high work rates for my CDMs. I asked one of my CDMs to actually get forward, which I'll show you that on my instructions in just a second. But the main thing, you want players that are strong defensively, but also can offer you something in attack, especially if you're going up against someone that's playing those drop back defensive tactics that are just parking the bus completely. Having that support from your CDMs in your attack is just going to help you crush those players, and they're not going to end up being able to bother you at all. Fullbacks, same thing. You want a lot of pace from your fullbacks. I've seen some people that maybe, will have like a Mendy with like 95 pace, and then they still don't boost them a little bit. I would highly recommend getting your fullbacks to as close to 99 pace as possible. We're going up against these epically fast wingers every match now, so you need your fullbacks to be able to run with them, to be able to defend them, to be able to body them a little bit. So that's really important, pace on your fullbacks, and also passing on your fullbacks. Like I said, wing play is so important, so you need fullbacks that can make those passes up the wing. Center back, I feel like Longley is an absolute animal. Ramos is the best center back in game, in my opinion. So I feel like this is the best defensive pairing in the game right now, in my opinion. They've just been absolute monsters for me. But one thing I've really stressed on center backs this year, you need center backs with high agility. So you're looking at like at least minimum of 70. You're hoping for even above 80, because we're preaching all the time for attackers with high agility, and EA keeps giving us attackers with like 99 agility, 99 balance. But but if your center back is like 65 agility, they're not going to be able to twist and turn to keep up with those attackers. You need center backs that can move and defend with those attackers that have that epic agility. And actually, on my Sergio Ramos, I gave him an engine chem style to boost his agility up there. So, those are just some things to look for as you're building your team. I feel like this is an epic team for me. I've said this multiple times too. This is the first team I've had since I restarted at Christmas that I feel I can compete with anyone. So it doesn't matter who I come up with at this point. I feel like I can compete with them. Now let's just get on over to the instructions. For instructions for my striker, I've got him on stay forward and conservative interceptions, and that's just to help out with his stamina a little bit. For Dembele, I've got him on stay on edge of box for cross. And the reason for that is I don't want my Dembele just flying into the box and not having a passing option. When you have your players making runs on the wing, use that being able to pass back is one of the best ways to score this year. So I want my central cam to stay back. Ribery can keep running into the box if he wants. Mertens can run it, like if I'm running up the wing with a tall, Mertens can get it, crash the box. Ribery can crash the box, but I want Dembele to hang back a little bit to give me another passing option to kind of just give me something else there. But I also like free roam and conservative interceptions, and that's just to help Dembele with his stamina a little bit. A tall I have on comeback on defense, get into the box for cross and conservative interceptions. And same thing for Mertens, come back on defense, get into the box for cross and conservative interceptions. My CDMs, this is what I was talking about. I think I haven't seen anyone else try this, but for me, it works absolutely beautifully. I have Luka Modric on get forward, but I think this works perfectly. He has high work rates, and this is another reason I love drop back defending, because I feel like what that forces Modric to do, fly forward from a CDM role, but with that drop back tactic, fly back to try to get back on defense. So I'm asking a lot out of my CDM. So Modric is flying forward, flying back, flying forward, flying back, but he contributes so much to the attack, just absolutely amazing, and also on cover center. Nainggolan I have on balanced attack. I don't have him on get forward, but with his high work rates, he still does get forward, and I still feel with the drop back, he's going to track back. I do like Nainggolan's body type in game. I like having a little bit stockier, a little bit stronger CDM to kind of pair with Modric out there. So if you have a stronger CDM, I kind of recommend that. A little bit more imposing presence, kind of like how Vieira is, just somebody that has a little bit of muscle out in the midfield, and also on cover center. Fullbacks are in the whole back line, just on stay back while attacking, but definitely one key thing, try to pass to your fullbacks a lot. I see a lot of people miss attacks because they just don't pass to their fullbacks, so make sure to get them involved, but have them on stay back while attacking. Drive them forward if they have that opportunity to make a run. Don't really worry about it that much, but, also stay back while attacking. They're going to hustle back on defense. So that's just the way I play that. Now, one thing I do occasionally, if you are playing in a game and it just doesn't feel like anything is going right, then I have been starting to play this tactic right here. And what I am doing here is playing fast build up. And since I'm playing fast build-up and I have so many players flying forward, I actually have my depth on 3 here. And the reason for that is you've got players just bombing up the pitch. So I don't feel like it plays like a 3 depth, but what that's forcing them to do is kind of run back into a further defensive role. So 3 depth for my defense on this one, but compare that with fast build-up. And what that does, if you just, like I said, if you just have one of those games where it just seems like your players aren't moving, the offensive AI is so weird in FIFA 20, so switching to fast build-up can kind of just switch things around. So I like doing that for a change. I believe I have everything else the same, so everything else is exactly the same for instructions. It's just a change on my tactics screen, so just keep that in mind. So the tactics change, the instructions do not. Now, I've recently added this. I should have had this a lot longer. This is one I switch to when I want to see out a game. So here I'm playing the 4-2-3-1, the second variation with wide. They're not cams. They're left mids and right mids. So it's a 4-2-3-1 with the left mids and right mids. And this one I'm playing possession style, drop back with 2 depth. And this is only one I'm going to switch to in maybe the 80th minute if I'm up a goal, not feeling comfortable in the game. You know, your opponent switching to just that full-on press. And, you know, if you're sending your players forward, you know, you're not having good opportunities to pass. You don't want to get pegged back. So this is a good one. You know, 1 corners, 1 free kick, you know, not a lot of players in the box. As far as instructions go, I changed my striker to get in behind, and that's just because your opponent is generally just pressing you and pressing you. So you want to try to get that through ball into your striker, get him in behind. But everyone else, I just have defensive. You know, come back on defense, stay back. You know, come back on defense, stay back. So you know, everything is just defensive for that particular thing. The only other thing I'll switch to is I'll occasionally switch to a 4-4-2 if I'm trailing in a game, and I do not play it in drop back. I just have it there. I pause the game, and what I will do, I will change this to constant pressure and depth of either 9 or 10 and fast build up with players in the box. I make my width a little more narrow just because you have a lot of built-in width there, and I want to make sure everyone's crashing the box as much as possible. But that's the way I play that for this particular thing. I just have it on drop backs so I can make sure when I do initially switch to it, I will come back and pause, or I will change something with the custom tactics in game. Instructions for this, I've got my 1 striker on comeback on defense and the other one on basic defense support. I like 1 striker in the 4-4-2, not necessarily to come back on defense, but more to be available for a pass to kind of play a central cam role. So that's why I have him on comeback on defense. I have, you know, Mertens on comeback on defense, a tall on comeback on defense, but they're on fast build up. So I'm asking them to come back, you know, because you don't want to give up any more goals, but you also want them to fly forward. So that fast build up makes them fly forward. Since Modric and Nainggolan are CMs in this role instead of a CDM, I do have Nainggolan on stay back while attacking. But remember, he's also on fast build up, so he is getting forward. So that kind of works differently. So just kind of keep in mind that some of these tactics are going to influence your instructions. And then as far as my left back, he's still on stay back while attacking. We're just changing our shape up and just getting things going that way. But all of this stuff works really well for me. I think it does wonders. For me, it's the best custom tactics, the best formations in games. But anyways, boys, I just wanted to let you know, share with you my custom tactics for all of this. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Please, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me everywhere, but I'll see you soon. Bye.